Just looking at Harrogate town centre, I think people have very different views of where it's going and where it needs to go. But there's a common thought that they need to diversify. What in your view, where does Harrogate need to go?
Well, our town centre, like all town centres and city centres, are changing, and the key thing that's changing is that they're no longer going to be really focused upon retail. So the key directional change is diversity. That means more hospitality, more town centre living, more town centre business. That brings with it some policy changes. How do we improve the environment? How do we make it more easy for people to change their usage of a building? And how do we improve the environment in terms of digital environment? So this is a big change. All of our town centres are changing, and we need to just lean into that and make sure we've got much more hospitality and reasons to bring people into our town centre. They enjoy the experience and they linger. They'll do some shopping whilst they're there, of course, but hospitality and that general hub. A town centre isn't just a commercial place, it is a social place. So the function is broader than commercial, and we need to lean into that. I think Harrogate actually is extremely well placed for that, because the built environment is fantastic. The parks and gardens wonderful. You can't really come into Harrogate and come down West Park Stray without looking at the gardens and thinking, oh, this is rather nice, how absolutely wonderful for visitors. So I think we're in a very strong place, but we have to recognise that the world is changing, and we need to lean into that to make sure the changes work for us.
And when you compare Harrogate to, say, places like York, I suppose York has more heritage, and in many ways it naturally pulls more people in. Do you think Harrogate needs to look at sort of definite action then to, I wouldn't say attractions, but I suppose that's really what I'm sort of saying is, it would need one key thing really, wouldn't it, to maybe bring a family in or individuals into the town?
Well, York is a very interesting comparison. Firstly, it is known internationally, globally. There are very few towns in our whole continent which have got the history and presence of York. So Harrogate can't really compete with centuries of history, millennia of history. But actually we do have reasons to come here, and one of the biggest drivers is our convention centre. So I think bringing people here, that's in an area where we've been strong. We are strong in both domestic tourism and also business tourism. So people like coming to Harrogate. We know that because things like the Convention Centre or Destination Harrogate poll them. They ask them, do you like coming here? What do you like about it? And they like coming to the friendly, open, safe environment and enjoying all of the hospitality. So I feel we're in a very strong place, but we're not the same as York by any means. We can't compete on that. We're very different businesses indeed.
And there has been a kind of a push then to develop part of the town centre with the Gateway project, and that's gone through a long history. And at the moment, it's currently paused. I think pending a kind of a further review and potentially, I think, an extension to the budget timing out. But that hasn't really reflected well on Harrogate, because we seem to have gone through this sort of big, what seems just like a big argument, with maybe a lack of understanding and people taking a very, snap view of what it will do or not do. What's your view? I know you've sort of formally commented on it about moving on from the Gateway. What's your view with where that needs to go now?
Well, I could see some merit in part of the Gateway proposals, and I could also see some problems. And I don't think it's been particularly well handled by the council or by the area committee. The area committee, for example, voted in favour of it, and then very shortly afterwards it voted against it. Well, you can't run on two horses at the same time. I think the bottom line is we have an area in our town centre which could do with more investment, and the Gateway project was a mix of sustainable transport and urban realm work. They've got themselves into a mess, quite frankly, for a lot of different reasons. So I think they're in danger of being timed out. What I think we need is to see that the money that has been allocated stays in Harrogate, and they actually focus upon things that they can deliver. And that looks like, to me, urban realm works. The thing that proved particularly controversial were the station parade and James Street proposals, and I think those have now been formally dropped. But the ball is now in the court of the council to come back with revised proposals. But let's of course keep some perspective. I had people contact me to say that this was a scheme which was all about state surveillance, putting in cameras. And no, it wasn't really. Let's just think about how we can make our town centres more attractive places. And that means enhanced public transport offers. It means enhanced sustainable transport offers. And that was at the part of this whole gateway approach. So let us keep perspective and remember that our town centres have to change, as we've just been talking, and the Gateway project should be seen in that policy way.
And one of the comments, it was a question, I think, to the area committee, was that I think now Gateway is ended up where it has, in a kind of a final review stage. It reflects a bit bad on Harrogate, and maybe its access to further budgets. Does Harrogate need to be seen as, grasping these budgets and kind of working with the schemes, influencing them in the right way, in other words?
Yeah, if you're applying for government grants, and generally I have to say we have had real success in doing that, whether it is in health, education, transport, whatever, we've had some notable successes. But the key reason why we have had that is that we are seen as effective partners. I have seen this from both sides of the table, so I can tell exactly what a minister will be looking for. It will be people that they can work with who will fulfil their side of the bargain. When you talk to people who run our hospital here, for example, very high calibre management team, won very recently some money to transform their energy consumption and have some microgeneration on site as well. And they have set about and delivered that project and delivered it very well. The point is about having people who are across the table who will do what they say they'll do, and that is what we've not seen with the area committee on Gateway. So I think constructive engagement and thinking in a positive way how we can make our area better, how we can help our town centre transform in light of the digital world arriving. That's where people need to focus. But let us keep it constructive and keep it consistent and work together. And quite frankly, that's one thing the area committee has not done.
And you hear people say things like, if only parking was cheaper, or if Harrogate had a market again, then the town would be, absolutely thriving.
Well, it's a long time since our market burnt down. I remember it, but quite frankly, Harrogate has thrived with an indoor market and without an indoor market. But I think, and I have to say, I rather like the indoor markets which I've seen. I like Halifax and Leeds, for example. But that isn't an exclusive idea that if we have one of those, our town centre will thrive, because we have, as I've said, been successful both with and without. The key is to make sure that our town centre is an attractive place where people want to come into it, they want to spend some time in it, they enjoy the environment around it. And that, I think, is something that we are almost uniquely well placed to deliver, but we have to make sure we keep focused upon it. I'm absolutely clear that when people come here, they look around and think, the built environment, super. The parks and gardens, super. The mix of businesses, hospitality, a nice mix of independence that brings some individuality to the area. That's a very important part of the overall attractiveness. This is how we will make our area as successful in the future as it is now and has been in the past.
And do you think there's possibly Harrogate, maybe like other towns, they look at the councils or the government to make all these changes, when really they need to drive some of it themselves. So if you look at, by comparison, I suppose, like the Christmas offering in the town, well, it is the local businesses that benefit from a stronger Christmas, if you like, Christmas feel to it. And I think there's a tendency to sit back and wait, the council's not done this, or we're waiting for them to do that. Whereas the town centre themselves could maybe lead the way a bit more.
Well, I think actually that's a little harsh on the town centre, to be honest with you, Tim. I think if you look at the work on Christmas, making Harrogate very attractive at Christmas, I think the businesses have come together and done a super job there. So I think that's a little harsh on the premise of your question.
Okay.
However, I also think that the way of approaching this is actually to work with the council. So I thought the Christmas market that we've had was fantastic. We've had Christmas markets down at the bottom of Montpellier Stray, and then we've had a much sort of a bigger Christmas market right up in the town centre. That was very much what the retailers and local businesses were saying to me. We want it up in the town centre, please, not enclosed away from it. So I think the future here is the council working with the businesses to deliver the Christmas market, and the council working with the businesses to maximise the opportunities that it creates. I look at things like the light display created by businesses, very much funded by contributions, and think, great work. Harrogate at Christmas is an attractive place to be.
And just coming back to the Gateway project then, I think there's perhaps some missing the point. It's termed a Gateway project for a reason, isn't it? And we've sort of focused on, if you like, just the negatives and positives to Harrogate. But it was all about the routes in, wasn't it, to Harrogate, whether by train or by bus or by cycling, I suppose.
Well, public transport and clean public transport is going to be critical for town centres and city centres across our country. And that's because there's been huge focus upon the environment. The air quality is obviously critical, but also people want to see progress on carbon reduction. So I've put personally a significant amount of energy into improving our public transport performance. If we just look at where we are now, we have got a new fleet of trains. The old two-carriage pacers, which quite frankly were very grim and always were the source of much complaint, they have now gone. We now have a three-carriage, much larger carriages too. More services, better services, later services, London services. On the buses, we have an electric fleet serving large parts of Harrogate, and within the next year we will see a further electric fleet come in to complete the work, but also to expand into Knaresborough. This is a great thing. So this is about improving the attractiveness of our public transport, making it easier to get here, and not just easier, but much more pleasantly to arrive as well.
And one of the issues, I suppose, with using public transport is the cost. And it's not cheap, to go by train, if you like, to London. And I think there's a tendency that you look at the car and the drive and you're thinking, well, I've paid the insurance and road tax, so I've got my overheads covered, I might as well just drive. Can the government influence rail ticket prices? And I suppose this is sort of a little bit connects to HS2, whereas I think there was all the focus on the capacity and maybe speed of services rather than the actual ticket price. What can the government do on that?
Well, I think there's a few things that the government can do, and indeed is doing. I think if we just take buses, we have the £2 fare, the bus fare cap, and people can now go to Leeds. You can get the 36 into Leeds, £2. That is great value. And in terms of how that compares to driving in, well, you'll be paying significantly more than that to park anywhere near the centre of Leeds. So that is a way that the government is trying to help people back onto buses. We're also seeing much more flexibility on pricing on our railways. So I obviously go down to London each week, come back again on a Thursday or Friday. Sometimes the fares can be quite expensive, but sometimes also they can be really good value. And they've varied from £30 to £130. So if you can travel off-peak, there are some pretty good deals available. So having some price flexibility to encourage people onto our public transport is a critical way of getting people back operating. And we lost some of that during the pandemic, and we need now to sort of get it back. The leisure market, by the way, I speak with the rail companies all the time, the leisure market is now actually trading at a level above pre-pandemic, but the commuter market has not. So that reflects, I think, a societal change.
And it is interesting, I think, when you compare North Yorkshire to, say, London. When I visited friends down in London, you say, well, I'll drive, and they laugh at you, don't they, just when you say that you're going to drive across London. I think we seem to have this sort of culture that, we want to step out of our front door, get in a car, drive to this, not just in a car park in the town centre, but a car park right in next to the shop almost. Whereas in London, you know, the times I've worked down in London or lived down in London, you find actually you walk a lot more, even if you are using the tube or you know, or the buses. So we've got a cultural change, haven't we, really, in our approach?
Well, the two are wholly different markets. You know, we're dealing with one of the great global cities with a public transport system which has been built up in layers for 100, 200 years. So we're in a very, very different place. But the point is that public transport is a part of basically making our economy work. And we haven't seen, historically, in the north of England, the investment that we should have been, and we're playing catch-up. Equally, we've just been talking about some of the investments we've seen on our rail. We can see work enhanced on the Leeds station or on the Trans-Pennine railways. So we are catching up, but it will be fair to say the south has a significant lead. But the quality of life in the north is vastly higher, but we are solving different questions.
And just coming back to Harrogate Town then, particularly around the possibility of Harrogate having a town council. We've gone through a change where we've lost borough council, and now in a way this would effectively be bringing back a sort of part borough council. What's your view on, does Harrogate need its own town council?
The key question that we should start with is, what will be the town council's responsibilities? What is it for? What will their responsibilities cover? Is it going to be different to the area committee? Is it going to be a talking shop? Do we need a talking shop? I would suggest no. So let us not think about the solution, let us think about what the question is and then work out how best to deliver it. And that question about policy has barely been considered yet. So I'm not against a town council, but we need to work out what it is it's actually for. The wrong way round here, creating a town council, creating a public body, creating a body to levy a council tax with staff, and then work out what it's going to do. Well, you wouldn't do that in a business. If somebody came to you and said, you're running a business, I'd like to create a new division, please. What's it for? Don't know yet. You just simply wouldn't do it. So work out what it's for, then think about how we can make our area better. If that means a town council, let's go with it.
One of the arguments on that is people will say, well, if Harrogate says it doesn't need a town council, does that then mean that those that have councils like Knaresborough, does that then take away the argument for Knaresborough having a town council?
I think it's about the devolution that we will see and who takes decisions locally. So then it would be, I would suggest, the area committee to take a pace forward and to take some responsibility. And at the moment we're seeing more talking than we are seeing doing and action. So I don't think we can answer that question until we've seen people think a bit more about their roles in the area committee.
And we've got, talking of devolution and changes, and we've got, if you like, another big change coming in next year with the appointment of a mayor. And I think a lot of people don't understand. I think mayors can confuse people where they've maybe seen the Harrogate town mayor, if you like, maybe, you know, opening shops and the like, but this is a very, very different role. So they've got a very defined responsibility, and I suppose transport and police and fire are probably the two of the biggest areas. How do you see that affecting the county?
I think this could be a real win for us. When I look around the country and I see people who are very strong in their areas, could be Andy Street, Andy Burnham, Ben Houchin, these people have made a difference in their areas by basically grabbing the opportunity to say, we'll take responsibility, help us work with government. They've all worked with government in a constructive way, give us this responsibility, give us these budgets, we can do the following. Well, I think that's a very positive way to approach this. And we can do that for our area. So we have a devolution deal which will see significant budgets come into our area. And quite frankly, we should be looking at more devolution. Local solutions to local problems will be better solutions to local problems. Rather than looking 200 miles away and thinking, oh yes please, the man from the ministry, please tell me what we need to do. No, let's get the powers locally, run with them and make a difference. And you can see around the country, Andy Street, Andy Burnham, Ben Houchin, those are the people who have shown the way. We want some of that.
And Andy Burnham then, he's just introduced his own bus service, I believe, hasn't he, in Manchester?
Yeah, not quite, I think. I think he said he might introduce franchising, which isn't quite the same thing as introducing a bus service. But yeah, the big cities have got the powers to change their transport. We might see the same in West Yorkshire as well, actually.
Am I right in thinking that the current system, anyone, if you've got the money and inclination, then you could set up a bus service?
Sure. Yeah, nothing wrong with people starting new businesses and thinking, right, I can create a market, I can add value by opening up a new route or having a new service. That is a good thing, and we've seen some very positive work done to invest in our local buses. Franchising is a little bit different. Franchising is a power that has been created in the Bus Services Act 2017, and it is about giving the capacity for local mayors to set about franchising in the way that London has set about doing it. So it's not quite the same thing, really. Actually, that bill, I'm quite aware of this bill because I wrote it. I saw it through as Transport Minister at the time, and it creates a suite of powers. It is an enabling bill, and it basically says you could have an enhanced partnership, you could go down the route of franchising. They need to work out what is the right thing locally, and there will be different solutions to different places. And I would suggest a big city solution, Manchester, London, Birmingham, are going to be quite different to a North Yorkshire solution, where I think it will be much more to do with working together. But there are enabling powers. But we shouldn't worry too much about the powers. The key thing here is, will we have somebody who is trying to make our area better? And better will include environmentally friendly, high quantity, high volume public transport. And that is a yes.
And just looking forward then, more at, if you like, what's going on in Westminster. What are the main events for you, if you like, over the next couple of months?
Well, a mixture of local and Westminster, if I may, in answering that question. On a local basis, the key thing now is I get the bid into DEFRA for bathing water status for the River Nid at the Lido in Knaresborough. And that's been a big piece of work, and we're just pulling all the different ingredients together at the moment to make sure we get our bid in on time. Also, I'm just starting a new health survey, which is a sort of a broad survey right across the area of people's opinions and experiences of the health service. That's something I did 10 years ago, and this is about repeating that to help inform local policymakers and make our health services even better. If I look down into Westminster, I think we're going to have a very interesting time, because we've had party conferences, we will be having a King's Speech, we'll be having an autumn statement, and the parties will also be starting their manifesto work. So I think it's going to be a really policy-heavy period over the course of the next few months.